a general class on kashrus next Friday. I'm covering for Rabbi today because I'm not going to be here this Friday, so we'll switch slots. So we're going to start with page Kuf Mem Aleph, which encompasses the halachas about infestation found in fruits and vegetables. I'd like to give a little bit of an overview on this topic before we actually delve inside. Knowingly and willingly eating whole bugs is forbidden from the Torah. Many can cause someone to violate many different lavim at the same time, and it's not allowed. The good news is that most people do not knowingly and willingly want to eat bugs. The challenge is that bugs tend to camp out and to hide and to reside in certain types of fruits and vegetables that make a hospitable environment for them. And therefore, we get into the whole discussion, can we eat these fruits and vegetables? How can we eat them? How do we rid them of the bugs? What's our responsibility? So these are all the discussions that are really an outgrowth of this primary law itself. There's also a few other points I'd like to bring out, which is that a whole bug is considered a barrier, is an entity for itself, and therefore would not be subject to the laws of nullification if you have a greater mass volume, greater than 1 in 60. So if the bug is only less than 1/60th of the volume of the food, but it's a whole bug, it would not be nullified because it has an entity for itself. If the bug is fragmented, is no longer discernible, no longer a whole bug, so then the fragments, if they equal a portion that's less than 1 in 60, meaning you have a greater amount of permissible material, 1 in 60, so then the fragmented parts would be nullified 1 in 60. So this really gets us into the beauty and the functionality of a smoothie machine, because a good smoothie machine, like a Vitamix or a Bullet, or they have other kinds, I'm not even sure all their names, but one that really effectively liquefy something into a liquid substance and don't just leave it as pieces. The fine substance, it's finely pureed, then any bug that would be found in there would be nullified, would be liquefied, and would be fragmented. So you're going to have a greater mass of permissible material against the bug. Now, before putting some highly bug-sensitive fruits or vegetables in the smoothie blender, it's better to give them a quick rinse because then you're creating a little bit of a suffix, so it's better. But if our intention is not to nullify the bugs in the first place, we don't want them there. Our intention is just to create a smoothie. We want a liquid drink, so it's really permissible from those grounds. Okay, so now we're going to go look at this inside. Also, just a few other points to cover before we start. We're on page Kuf Mem Aleph, you can think of safer. Certain fruits and vegetables. I'm going to share with you some very, I would say, some helpful hints to be able to determine which fruits and vegetables are particularly bug sensitive. Now, there's a lot of wonderful resource material that have been published by all the reliable hechsherim, the OK, the OU, the Starcade, they have videos and they have lists online and pictorials of how to clean one's vegetables, veggie wash systems, and all that's wonderful. And they also detail the various types of fruits and vegetables, which ones are sensitive, how to deal with them, etc. In general, when you have a fruit or vegetable that has cavities, for example, I'm going to give you a more pronounced example. A blackberry has a cavity, and the outside of the blackberry has many different shapes. There's a lot of room for the bugs to reside there. They can create different encampments inside. On the outside, it's really hard. It's not a smooth surface. It's not a closed surface. Even a raspberry, also you have a large cavity. And other types of strawberries also more sensitive. It's closed, but you have webbing. So again, these things make it more challenging to be able to rid them of bugs. And on the other hand, if you take something, let's say an apple and an orange, the apple itself is a closed product. So if you don't see any evidence of infestation on the apple, you don't see that a bunch of worms have, taken up residency in the apple and look smooth, it's fine to eat. The same would be with a grapefruit or a potato, yes? Oranges, sometimes on the skin of the orange itself, you can have the orange scale bug. Okay, that would be, so you wash that well to get rid of it, but the actual orange itself not getting penetrated with the bugs itself. Same would be hold true with grapefruits and the like. Once we talk about leafy vegetables, so again, we're getting into an area of sensitivity. So let's say we're talking about, for example, romaine. Romaine, it's known to be an infested type of vegetable. It's common to find bugs there. And then you have iceberg, which is a little bit less common, although not uncommon per se. And then you have cabbage, which you could also find. It could be infested at different times of the year, but it's a little bit less common to be infested than it would be of iceberg. I'll tell you a little joke. In the 1980s, when I was a counselor in the Midwest in a camp, so it used to be permissible to use a certain pesticide. I believe it's called EDT or PDT. I'm not sure I gave the E or the P wrong there, but it's a very strong pesticide that kills birds. It became illegal to use in the United States. They still allow them in other countries. I believe, like in Mexico, it's allowed. Anyway, so on that basis, there were people that would eat like iceberg lettuce without checking, because they said they were very strong pesticides, and they had who to rely on. I'm not saying that there was certainly room to be stringent, but there was a pizza shop in the Midwest that had a reliable certification, and the owner, he was relying on, or the certification was relying on this very strong pesticide. He took a paper plate and he wrote, "We don't check our lettuce, don't bug us." And he put it in the front window. Like he's letting you know, this is what I do. You like it, come here and eat. Otherwise, don't come. So anyway, that was kind of cute. But let's look at it inside. Also, I want to mention another point before we go inside, is that the Torah gives us clear metrics of when to be concerned, when not to be concerned. And I guess you can say part of my trademark humor is that this is the cure for Jewish neurosis. Allah is very clear. Like, this is what we have to be concerned about. Once we fulfill our obligation, we leave the matter alone. We don't have to get into what if thinking, what if this, what if that. No, because the Torah was not given to the angels. God understands the mortal, who knows the mortal condition, who knows human beings' limitations greater than God himself. He's our creator. And he gave us a clear metrics of what we need to do. And after doing that, God takes over, so to speak. We just have to do our avodah, so to speak. So, Kosev Torah Kadesha, it says in the Holy Torah, Al Tishakses Nafshei Seichem, V'chol Hasheretz Hasheretz V'V'Tam V'Hem V'Nitmeis and Bam. The Pasuk in Vayikra, we're on page Kuf Mem Aleph, if you want to get it safe, 141. We're learning a new subject now, learning a subject about not consuming insects. So don't make your soul despicable by eating swarming creatures, and don't defile your soul by eating them. So there are 3 types of swarming creatures. Sheretz ha'oif. You have sheretz ha'oif, swarming creatures that are in the bird family, and sheretz hamayim, swarming creatures that are in the water, and sheretz ha'oretz, and swarming creatures that are on the land. But kulam asurim in Torah, and all of them are also from the Torah. The Torah gave many different warnings against the prohibition of eating swarming creatures. Someone has sheretz hamayim, loike arba pamim malchus. They get malchus four times. Someone eats a sheretz that's swarming on the ground, they would get malchus 5 times. And sheretz ha'oif would be malchus 6 times. Yesh mishomer, there are those that say, Katam shechmira ha'toira kol kach. The reason the Torah is so strict for Yisr shrotzim, that there are many lavim associated with eating shrotzim, which are swarming creatures, will be yesh shrotzim mitzui meir depeis v'yirachis, because they're often commonly found in fruits and vegetables. The person needs to put an extra emphasis, an extra care, not to stumble and eat them. And eating forbidden swarming creatures, it defiles the soul of those that eat it, like other forbidden foods. It's like eating non-kosher food. So it's a serious matter. But again, we have to do what we can do. We have to do our avodah. So then after that, we're good. Halacha beis. Ha'oichel isuri machel. The person eats an isur machel and chayav malchus. They don't get malchus. They don't get ochel kazayis man unless they consume the kazayis. Aval ha'oichel pachas mi kazayis. Someone ate less than the kazayis. After avar al isur derais. Even though they violate the isur of the Torah, ain't chayav malchus. They don't get malchus. Ulam ha'oichel beria tmeya, bria tmeya. As I said before, if someone eats a full insect, meaning not a fragmented insect, normally we don't want to do that. Not something we would find palatable. But if someone does, it's an issa right away. Whether they ate it whole or dead, if it's whole, meaning whether they ate it alive or dead, if it's whole, it's still considered to be a beria, and they would get malchus for that. Even a very small insect as whole, that you have to really look to see, to detect, you would still be considered to be liable if you ate it. But type of insects or parasites that you can only see through the usage of a microscope are not asa, because again, the Torah is not given to the angels, and it's not considered within the realm of the human condition. Now, having said that, like many areas of halacha, there's a famous debate on this matter. What happens if I see something that I cannot detect is a bug with my naked eye, but I know it's something, and I need a magnifying glass to ascertain that really it is a bug? Is that considered as if I saw it as a bug or not? There's different opinions about that. If you see something very small, and if it would be dead, you wouldn't see it as a bug. But when it's moving, if it's very small, it's moving, you know it's a bug, because it's a living substance. That would be a problem. So there's a little bit of some different opinions about this, but certainly if something you can see that's whole is a problem to consume. As we're going to learn, there are certain vegetables which are not known to be infested. For those we can consume just with a casual wash, or just the way they are. But as I said before, like an apple, an orange, a grapefruit, a potato, it's very unusual to find those infested. If you see something, you obviously have to respond to it, but otherwise you don't have to suspect any problem. Now, what about if it's a type of fruit or vegetable where it's common to have infestation? If someone wants to eat a fruit, I feel that even though they don't see any infestation, or they don't see any worms and the like, but it's very common for this type of fruit or vegetable to have infestation. When it's attached to the ground, it's growing in the ground, so it's in an environment where there are lots of bugs. So we have to assume there's a great possibility. Maybe there will be a worm in there. You cannot eat it before first checking it. Now I'm going to talk at the end of the sif. I'm going to explain there's either checking or there's a specialized washing methodology which could equal checking if it's done properly. There's a difference between the country and warmer climates, by the way. Infestation is of a greater concern. Like in Eretz Yisrael, you have to check flour and you have to check your rice. In America, it's not a requirement to check flour as long as you rotate your stock accordingly. You're not storing it in your warm kitchen cabinets over the whole summer. That would not be advisable. If you're going to be away for the summer, put your flour in the freezer. But if you're buying flour and you're rotating the stock, you don't have an obligation to check it. Rice also, generally speaking, is not infested, although it's a good idea to check rice. Occasionally you can find weevils in it. It's more common in the summer than it would be in the wintertime, but it's not that common. I'll take a question in a moment. Well, in some countries we might have certain things which are commonly infested, and other countries not. Like I just gave an example about rice. In Eretz Yisrael, you must check your rice. One should not consume any fruit or vegetable in that country if it's the norm to find them to be infested. If someone already did cook that particular fruit or vegetable without checking it, to determine whether or not after the fact the food could be eaten, because there are other factors that come into play once it gets cooked. Yes.
I think I have two questions. One, how do you check flour though? Like I know that rice, so you can lay it out on the pot to be roasted and got it. Let's look at it, but how do you check flour?
It's a good question. No, it's a good question. The general answer to that would be they would run the flour through a sifter that has a very tight mesh. And the tight mesh is measured in microns. Microns refer to when you have a mesh, you have a weave of metal. So I have metal going this way, metal going that way. And depending how tight it is, that would be the how they actually measure that particular mesh. This mesh size is a very tight mesh size would have a higher micron size. There's a certain micron size. I don't remember off the top of my head. I believe it's above 60, but I might be mistaken. I'll have to double check that after class. That would be considered to be a tight enough mesh to be able to catch any bugs so that the flour would sift through those holes, but the bugs would not. So you would run the flour through a mesh, and if it comes out clean, you know it's a clean flour. If it has one bug, you still could eat the flour. If it has more than 3 bugs, you have a problem unless you re-sift it to make sure it's 100% clean. But that's something that would be an example of how it would be done. It would require an instrument then to do it properly. It's a good idea to check it. I've checked brown rice. I do check it. And I would say maybe 1 out of 10 times I find a few weevils or something. I don't find that many bugs. I find 1 or 2. It's a good idea. I don't think it's a requirement though. Yirakish Shokol Medinas Muksakim Lias Behem Teloim. Vegetables or fruits of the countries are considered to be likely to have infestation in them, and you're not allowed to check them not allowed to eat them without checking them. Making similarly, leaves such as cabbage and cabbage and other types of green leaves. You have to check them. Now, I want to just get into, before we go further, in Halacha Hey, there's a fascinating discussion. So you have what Halacha tells us that we need to do. Then you have the application of the Halacha, so the application of the methodologies, how this matter is dealt with, were brought before some Greek rabbinic authorities, and they helped establish methodologies. The methodology itself of how to clean the vegetable is not something that's written in Halacha Moshe Messina. It's the application of fulfilling the law. So that if you look online, you'll see the various certification agencies have the methodologies how to clean the vegetable. As long as they're encompassing the proper requirements to do a thorough job, each methodology is valid. But now there was a famous question brought in front of a great halachic authority. Said if you have a washing system that's very thorough, that was checked to effectively clean the vegetable of any infestation, does that equal checking the vegetable? So to physically go and look at each vegetable with the naked eye and you would like see, let's say for example, taking romaine lettuce, some of the bugs are the same color as the leaf itself. They're very hard to detect. So, and today we also live in a very fast-paced society where everything is instant, right? We have Instacart, we have microwave food. Like if things don't come within 5 minutes, we need therapy. It's getting too much for us. So the ability to really have that type of patience, to thoroughly check something and to really, it's not so, many people don't have that patience today. That's also an issue. So the value of having a good washing system is very, very, very special. So what we do is we'll thoroughly wash something. We'll use like a veggie wash to create a slippery surface. So the bugs will not adhere to the fruit or vegetable anymore. They'll slip off. And then we'll swirl it around for about 5 minutes. And then we'll usually repeat that process twice, by just dumping out the water and coming in. And then the final wash, they'll take the wash water, they'll run it through a very tight mesh cloth. and the water's going to go through, and they'll see. You usually take a double colander that's you perforate and you run the water through, and inside you have the mesh cloth and you have the vegetables on top, and the water cascades through. And then you check the mesh cloth. If there's anything left in the mesh cloth, you know there still were some bugs in this wash, and you repeat the process. But if the last wash came about with a clean mesh cloth, you know that you're clean. So it's a much more of a bulk friendly, large volume process to use, and you can accomplish a lot. And it's also, I feel, more effective because if it's nitty gritty, it comes to a point where a person's just going to start fading. So this is very valuable in that sense. Gam kemach, I mentioned this before, flour, the palm and mitzuyim shots into sometimes it can have small. It's in the summer. It's sat around for a long time. So you have to sift it. It depends on the country. As I said, if you're going to be away for this summer, don't leave things inside your cabinet. That can become a disaster. Put your flour in the freezer, or make sure that the rice is in very tightly sealed containers and things like that. In general, when you buy rice, it's also advantageous, in my opinion, to buy it in a sealed bag. If you buy it in a box, the box is not really that sealed because the top area of the box, where there's glue, there's room for the bugs to come and have an entry point. If it's always cold, it's less likely to have a problem. Speak to the Rabbanim in England, but less likely to have a problem. Okay. Now he's going to get into Halacha Vav, gets into the fact that they used to use strong pesticides and a few decades ago, which are no longer allowed in the United States. Halacha Vav, Ba'avar hayaderech haklorim levasis timchei adama levaretz that they learned to spray them with strong pesticides. V'loyim etzur the beit yirakis, and they're not so found in fruits and vegetables. By the way, I've worked with some farmers, and there are certain types of, I know in the world of cabbage, there's certain types of cabbages which are more heavily infested than others. And they have ways of, to some degree, they can actually control things. To some degree, not fully, but to some degree. We believe that some people were leaning to eat these without checking them. As some people, they said that the spraying would kill the bugs. One of the great authorities said one could rely on this he said that a Baal Nefesh should still be stringent. Someone who wants to be more careful, be stringent, but technically they could rely on it. Because some people were lenient on those basis if they use the strong pesticides. There are some poskim that never allowed the pesticides to serve as a permissibility, as a pass, not to have to check the vegetables with the grain. According to him, all vegetables have to be checked before, even though they were pureed, and even though not pureed, even though they were sprayed. But romaine lettuce, which is known to be even more infested, they're found, they have green bugs found in them. Everyone agrees that one cannot be lenient with them because infestation is much more commonplace by them. Because it needs thoroughly checked. Through a God-fearing person. One should not rely on just a simple person to check them, because they have to be someone who's trained, someone who knows what they're looking for and knows what to do. By the way, I've been to also some large factories, world-leading companies that wash vegetables, and they'll sell like the romaine triple wash, cabbage or iceberg. What they do is they have these huge machines that come in first. They'll shred the actual vegetable, goes to a shredder, and it's either at that point it'll be shredded pieces. It goes through a flume, and then it goes through a tumbler and several different washes. Then eventually it gets bagged, and then it gets goes through a a high pressure spinner to dry it, and then it gets bad. So these systems, they help to some degree because they do get rid of some of the bug. The issue is these companies use a huge volume of water, and water usage is a big issue for them. So they recycle their water because they'll be using, the cost will be so high if they don't recycle their water. They usually have a ratio of 80% recycled water, 20% fresh makeup water in the mix. Now, having said the fact that they recycle the water itself is not a terrible thing, but what is not a good thing is that very often they'll have a mesh, they'll have a filter for the recycled water before it comes back into the new wash will not be a tight mesh, won't be the high micron. So then the old dead bugs will then be able to make their way back in to the second wash, and you really have not accomplished that much. Another thing which is also not so uncommon is that you'll have companies that will advertise something as triple wash. And what they mean by that is they'll go through a spray and a tumbler, but not really a thorough, rigorous type of jacuzzi wash where you're replacing the water. It's theoretically, if someone would be shredded and would go through a thorough wash, it might actually accomplish everything you need to have it accomplished. If it's not such a highly bug sensitive vegetable in the first place, like shredded cabbage, and one could achieve that in a more obtainable way. Din Yirakis Kayim, Zayin. Kol Amalei Urakis Man Sharisu Soy Mevaras Kol Telamina Yirakis. So when the pesticides would kill all the bugs, that would help. The Yameinu Noi, that's known that the Chakloim, the bugs, Einam Menasasim, Oid Bechamorim, Akimim Shemsham Mato. They don't necessarily, what part of the problem with pesticides is that the bugs get used to the pesticide. And then you have to have new pesticides to be able to trick the bugs to get them to stay away. So then the amount of infestation is greater in some ways. By the way, it also has to do with the climate. If we have a lot of flooding, often you'll find things will get more infested the next month or two afterwards. Today, people are more careful about this. Some people don't know the situation has changed, and therefore it's important to notify them. There are certain types of fruits and vegetables, which I said before, are not known to be infested. There are some fruits and vegetables that in some countries they are infested. But in the second country, they're not commonly found to be infested. It also depends on the time of the year and the type of vegetable. Therefore, what does that leave us? We're on page from Dal Al-Kain Yesh. The God is the whole one should check and verify at this time, that currently this particular fruit or vegetable is known to be infested. The list of Mimeda is a subterm bedikas follower. Well, to ask a Rav who's going to paskin which particular vegetable needs to be checked. Some people would soak the vegetable in salt. Better instead of salt water, it's better to use a veggie wash with an action. Again, so he's saying that whichever methodology you're going to use, make sure that you're in touch with someone who knows the methodology to be effective, etc. And that's the beauty and the value of all those wonderful guides available online. Someone found one or two bugs in a food that's not normally known to be infested. Let's say you find a worm in your apple. One or two. You cut away the worm. The rest of the food is permissible if it doesn't show any evidence of infestation. But if you find three or more, then it's considered to be have a chazaka of being infested, and we should not eat it unless you're going to actually run the food through a sieve, through a sieve, to sift it, so to speak. Any questions? So, because of in light of what we just said, And we know that a lot of these green vegetables are very healthy. So we want to be able to have benefit from the health benefits of them. At the same time, follow what halacha says. I'm going to share with you some ideas that can make our lives very much easier and to actually find an effective way to benefit from these fruits and vegetables and also keep what halacha says effectively. So first of all, we mentioned the smoothie machine. If you rinse anything, you can put anything into a blender that's going to blend it to a fine substance the size of a pencil dot or smaller. Whether you have a Vitamix or Ninja, the different types of the machines that are really powerful, it will liquefy everything. You put your iPhone in it, it'll liquefy that too, although it's not recommended, right? It's not for those kind of apples. But that's okay. So if let's say I want to have a whole bunch of green vegetables, I want to have a whole bunch, I can make a kale smoothie. I rinse it, throw it in there with a little liquid, and I zoom it up. It's no problem. To eat it whole is much more sensitive. So then we have to go through a very thorough, rigorous, and a proper washing system to make sure it's been effectively cleaned from any infestation concerns. And how to do that, and which type of vegetable needs what, then look online for the various guides. Additionally, if you want to buy triple washed, let's say I want to buy triple washed arugula, it's available in the stores. If it's triple washed, it's going to be more clean than arugula that was never washed in the first place. But it does not mean that it's triple washed and I can have it straight out of the bag either. Because it is a bug sensitive type of vegetable, one should run it through that washing system with the tight mesh sieves, which are available. You can purchase online, or they have them in their office when you get one. And you run it through, and then you wash it thoroughly and soak it in with the ready wash, and then check the wash water. When the wash water comes out, usually it might take 1 or 2 cycles, and you're going to effectively clean the vegetable. The downside of this method is that you're washing a vegetable that was already washed a few times, to wash it very close to the time you're planning on eating it, because it's not going to last very long thereafter. Any questions? Okay, so we'll stop at this point here. We have to some next week. We're going to get into a class all about kashrut and shadim and different standards, and so we know, just like when we go shopping in the store, we're going to shop for something that we're looking for. Let's say we're planning on doing some hiking in the summer. We're not going to go to the store and buy slippers for a hike. It's not the right footwear for that occasion. The same thing is spiritually, as Hasidim, we keep Chol Yisrael, we keep Pas Yisrael, we have a high standard. So we learn, what's available on the market, what those various symbols mean, so we can effectively shop and find products that match what we're looking for in terms of our spiritual and our culinary needs. Now I'll tell a couple of stories. We have another 5 minutes. Tell a story. I was in yeshiva in Morristown about a month and a half ago, 6 weeks ago. And my father's yard is Dalit year, 4th of the year, middle of Shir Soma. So I bring in honor of the yard Gimel year that night, and I was telling the story how when my father came to the Rebbe in 1961, he was in yeshiva for 2 years, and he was thinking that maybe he'll just go the full course, get smicha and become a rabbi, do that. And the Rebbe sent him back to university, told him to finish his university studies and become a scientist and get his PhD, etc. And the Rebbe gave 3 reasons. One reason was that he'll be able to elevate all the years he already invested thus far. Another reason was out of respect for his parents. My father was an only son. And my father's father, my grandfather, really wanted his son to become a scientist. My grandfather himself could not go to university because he had to support his mother and sisters. Because his father, my great-grandfather, died very young. So after high school, he would go and work a night job to support his family. So his whole dream was that his son is going to become a scientist. Anyway, the Rebbe said that was another reason to honor your parents. And the third reason was, the Rebbe said, you'll do more for Judaism with 3 initials after your name. That was his path. Anyway, so I was telling over this story, and there was a young man sitting across from me. He says, can I tell a story? I said, sure. He says to me, he went to the, he was in the yeshiva, and he's learning yeshiva for a year, and he wasn't sure should he continue on yeshiva and become a rabbi, or he should finish up his university studies. He asked his mashpia, which is the right thing to do. Mashpia is your personal spiritual mentor, and mashpia told him to write to the rabbi. He wrote to the rabbi. He opened up the letters of the rabbi, and he came to the letter that my father told the rabbi. The rabbi told my father to go finish up his university studies. And this fellow's name is also Yaakov. This fellow's name is Yaakov Ephraim, but the other one, same name as my father. So he right away Googled who's this Yaakov Hanoka. And a few days later, I came to Fabreng. He got his answer from the rabbi. I'm not saying it's an answer for everybody, but that was his answer in his individual situation, and the answer came very much a closed circuit. Another one of my mashgichim who lived in the Long Island area, he was moving to Eretz Yisrael, and he was a Sephardi, and he had a connection with Lubavitch. So before he moved with his family, he got smicha, and he was going to go into another industry. He wrote to the Rebbe, and he asked the Rebbe for a bracha before he moved to Eretz Yisrael. So he was leaving his post as a mashgiach. So I had to find a replacement mashgiach, which he gave me proper notice and the whole process. Anyway, he's in the oil, and he meets another Jew from the neighborhood that he lives in, who he knows. And they said Shalom Aleichem to each other. They said, "Who are you?" Whatever. I mean, they said, "How are you?" They knew each other. He says, "Yeah, I'm here because I'm moving to Eretz Yisrael. I asked Rebbe for a bracha before I leave, and I'm leaving my job, and I'm going to be starting a new industry when I get there." So he says, "Oh, really? I'm actually looking for a job." He was looking for a job in Tashkent. So he gave this fellow my phone number, and he got it. He became the replacement mashgiach. But this person came to the oil to ask them for bracha. He's moving to Eretz Yisrael. The other person came to the oil after them for bracha for parnasa, and the two of them met in the oil. They got his answer. There was the Rebbe lead, and the Rebbe was taking care of all of us, and the Neshama Klolis. Yeah. Anyway, so there's many such stories, but just some moments of inspiration. Okay, so Mitzvah Hashem, we'll see you next week, Be'ezrat Hashem, and we're going to have